Our next speaker was quite worried about the order of the speakers in these proceedings, and he wanted to know whether he's going to go first, third, second, and I told him, Erwin, you're going second because the order of speakers is in order of seniority. So Erwin Hahn has invented essentially everything in nuclear magnetic resonance, as far as I can tell, being a student of nuclear magnetic resonance, but he also connected the fields of nuclear magnetic resonance and the field of optics, being the first person, for example, to create and understand optical soliton, to invent the mother of all transparencies, the self-induced transparency, which is associated with very slow light. He discovered, I should say, spin echoes that later became photon echoes, and we even had these echoes mentioned several times today during the scientific session. So with this, I would like to invite Professor Erwin Hahn to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Dima. I never expected to be honored to speak in the company of such pioneer, genuine charity laser research people as Professor Towns and Professor Shen. I'm quite honored. Thank you. Long before I was promoted to the status of Professor Emeritus Decrepitus, I majored with my students in the field of NMR research and only entered the laser field late in time through the back door. That is, I boondoggled it in spite of the remonstrances from my flat earth-minded monitor in Washington. However, in that case, I was told to stay in my field because he was busy also monitoring other people in lasers, and I was no point in my adding to it. That just goes to show you the attitude in those days. Nowadays, all these disciplines are molded together in the form of generalized atomic physics, as manifested by the conferences and papers today. However, in the short time I have, I want to tell you a few anecdotes about my experiences with conferences and just a few cases. Richard Brewer, who was an IBM research fellow, established with Aram Meridian the series of laser optical conferences. Unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago. Among the conferences, there was one that sticks in my mind, namely Ron Shen. I don't want to steal your thunder on it, but you managed to have a helicopter dump orchids on a beach party at Maui. I don't know what conference series, whether it was number 2 or 3, and we all remember that as a parting gift and a departure, refreshingly, away from the primitive conditions that we had to suffer in Gordon conferences. For example, in the Gordon conference, the beds were of prison style, and one was exposed to the danger of bats getting into the bedroom. Also, at the end of the week, you ended traditionally being doused with lobster juice. However, I want to talk about one conference which was not exactly a laser conference. It was held in Arece, Sicily, and I entered the conference rather late, and the manager said, "Professor Hahn, we will assign you to the Pope's quarters." Indeed, it was. It was an annex to a monastery of which there were a number on top of the kind of a mountain town called Arece, the northern coast of Sicily. I was assigned to sleep. Indeed, I did. I slept in the Pope's bed. And the next morning, in fact, I was to give my first talk, and the chairman of the talk said, "I wish to introduce Professor Hahn. He is sleeping in the Pope's bed, and what he has to say is infallible." In fact, Professor Hahn tells me that he no longer has a sinus headache. So, with that known to a number of people, I discovered that curiosity sightseers came by to my quarters, knocked on the door, and I said, "Do you want to see me?" They said, "Oh, no, we don't want to see you, Hahn. We want to see the Pope's bed, take a picture of it." And so I had arranged to say every time somebody came in, which was more than once, I said, "What? You mean in this holy place you came here and you don't want to see me?" So that was my experience, particularly when I went to sleep every night and looked at the angelic infants flying attached to their niches in the ceiling above my bed. So that was an unusual situation. However, what takes the cake was a conference I attended in London at the Lord Mayor's Mansion House. Actually, it was managed more or less by the Royal Society, but we had a banquet, which was quite elegant, in the Lord Mayor's house. And among the guests were a whole retinue of lords from the House of Lords, together with some parliamentary people. And we had fun on that account. Richard Brewer and I were seated next to a lord and lady, his wife, and it became rather racy, if I may say. Richard asked the lady, "As a lady, tell me, when are you supposed to be called a lady and when you're not supposed to be?" She said, "Oh, Dr. Brewer, that's a lot of rubbish. In fact, aristocracy is rubbish, you know." And we chatted a while and I noticed that the Lord was snoozing. I think he must have been about 115 years old. And I whispered to Dick, I hope surreptitiously, I said, "Dick, see that? The House of Lords is proof that there's life after death." So that's a well-known remark that the British all make about their government, particularly that department. So that was another experience that was unique. Finally, I should remark about an episode which occurred at a conference that I was not present at. Namely, there was a physicist named Peter Franken. I don't know whether you know him, but he did some early work in nonlinear optics. He had a cousin named Peter Franken. I don't know what profession he was in, but at the conference, what occurred was that his cousin abruptly died. Peter was informed of this and found out that because they both had filed their obituaries with the New York Times, is it too loud?
No, too quiet.
Hmm?
Too quiet.
Too quiet. They both had filed their obituaries with the New York Times. Peter Franken, as I knew him, the physicist, had to leave the conference and straighten matters out. And the joke of the occasion was that people tried to tell him not to go, and instead go to his own funeral like Tom Sawyer did in Mark Twain's book about Tom Sawyer. So that was another occasion of an eccentricity of a conference. Let me say that with the onset of quantum optics, no longer are disciplines to be separated from one another. That's obvious. Everything is physics, and no longer do we distinguish between who did this and who did that, because they're all intermingled by virtue of the research tools that have been made earlier in separate categories. So with that, I'd like to thank the audience and the management for the invitation to speak. Thank you.